No hyperbole. APRS is my favorite mode for VHF, UHF. So we're going to talk about my favorite handhelds and why I think they're good and why APRS is kind of a mess right now. Let's get started. It was late in the 2000s, if you will, the aughts. And I was a technician, amateur radio license holder. I was down at an HRO one day, and I was talking to some of the folks, and they introduced me to the world of APRS via this radio, the Kenwood D74, which I've held on to not necessarily for its APRS features, although it is feature-packed, but because this is a cross-band full duplex radio for FM satellites. Where I was at the time was amateur radio. I wouldn't say that I was getting bored with amateur radio, but I was kind of at the point where all technicians have to make a decision. Are they going to just kind of be happy with the repeater game and maybe talking simplex on mobile radios, or are they going to choose to dive in a little bit deeper, discover a little bit more in the hobby? And that's what was the can opener, if you will, to a much broader world was APRS, and this radio, the D74. It is without question that if it wasn't for my discovery of APRS and wanting to get involved in it, get my computer connected to my handheld, and dive into the world and truly try to understand its function, I likely wouldn't have probably remained as active a ham, likely wouldn't have got my general license, wouldn't have got into summits on the air, possibly wouldn't even be focusing on amateur radio on this channel. So no question, APRS is the real deal for me. It is like my favorite mode of operation for VHF, UHF. Got to be careful there. Okay, so APRS was developed by Bob Berninga right up front. Bob became a silent key this year, which is part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, to say thank you, Bob. You have left a lasting legacy in amateur radio, and we are all better for your contributions to it. Just thank you. Your loss is felt in this community. So APRS, for those that don't understand what this is kind of going to be a bit of an opening here to explain, but I have a ton of videos on this. Today we're only going to be talking about handheld radios, particularly the best ones that are on the market, and I'm holding up two that aren't on the market, but yeah, we're going to talk about the ones that are, the FT5DR being one of them by Yaesu. APRS stands for Automatic Packet Reporting System, not position. People get confused about that a lot, and that leads to some preconceived notions that I'm hoping to break up here a little bit. Packets are just like what you think. Internet packets, same kind of concept. It's a blurt of data, in this case, blasted off over RF, but the content is still a data packet. Bob created this on an Apple IIe for the Navy back in 1981, and it has been changed along the way. There's been significant modifications made, particularly to how we use it, but the concept is still the same. The idea is that we have devices like these radios that will periodically squawk out packets of information. And naturally, things like GPS information for your location, elevation, heading, and sensor data like weather reports, right? You could have a weather station. They make weather stations that will connect to APRS radios and squawk out things like rainfall, wind, humidity, all interesting stuff, right? I think that's where a lot of people, they just crack the surface on APRS and they go, oh, it's a beaconing mode. I don't want people to know where I am. Well, that's the first misconception we're going to correct right now. None of these radios have to have APRS beaconing turned on. You don't have to squawk out your location, but it's really handy when you're out in the field to be able to have this on your shoulder and be potentially gathering packets of people that are around you that may want to have their information sent out there. Or in an emergency situation, you could always turn the packets on and transmit your location at least once or twice, so you know you got picked up by the internet and what we call the APRS.FI website. So the handhelds start out with this beaconing capability that people understand, but the second and my favorite aspect of APRS is the messaging capability. Yeah, just like an internet packet or a data packet, we can put an actual message in here that we type on the handheld and shoot it off to really anyone that's on the same frequency with us. Most likely, the APRS activity in your area is going to coincide around 144.390 megahertz, and it's a big APRS party line. That's kind of one of the interesting things about APRS is it's non-acknowledged, meaning all these radios could be squawking simultaneously, just stepping on each other, slamming into their packets. Some of them might not get out, and guess what? That's the reality of APRS. It's actually one of its most valuable points, is that we can all be on the same frequency together, all squawking out packets, and they generally get through. How do they get through? Well, we usually repeat things a couple of times. The reason why we send our position every so often is so that we can get a packet out there and onto the system. The reason that your messages, when you type them up, generally get sent 3 times when you transmit them, that's usually adjustable with your radio, is because we want to get at least one of them out there. So retransmissions are an often occurrence within APRS, particularly in congested areas, because of this collision that can occur. 2 hams go in a forest and they're APRS messaging each other. What good is that? Well, sure, they know where each other are at if they're beaconing out their position, they're sending messages back and forth, but you might be saying, well, why couldn't they just, talk to each other? Well, of course they can, right? And these handhelds will do that. Nothing is taking away from that. But the messaging goes much further than that. There are services that are attached to APRS, and it's facilitated by internet-connected digipeaters. A digipeater is basically like a repeater, but just for packets, just for APRS. And these digipeaters will take your packets and do a couple of things. The first is that they'll amplify it to whatever the radio output is and retransmit it a couple of times for you. And if that packet gets picked up by another digipeater, it will often transmit again. Usually about 2 hops is what you get on APRS. Taking your little 5-watt radio and boosting its power and propagation space significantly by using these digipeaters. Digipeaters are not necessarily or required to be connected to the internet. They're just there to kind of rebroadcast the signal. However, some digipeaters have what's called an iGate attached, and an iGate is an internet bridging device. What that does, takes those packets that the digipeater picked up, sends them over to the internet, and from the internet, so many things become available. One of the things that becomes available is access to SMS GTE. And what that does is it's a message location or target that you can send a text message to. And in the body of your packet, if you type in a phone number, it will take the rest of that message and send it as an SMS message to whomever you want to hit. You want to hit your significant other and let them know that you're a little bit behind schedule on the hike you were doing today? Sure, no problem. And if it was just that, that's already cool enough, but it gets even better. The SMS GTE service actually uses a bank of cell phone numbers or some kind of numbers. The person receiving your message will get a random bunch of numbers, and yes, you probably need to say, hey, it's whoever you are, your husband. I am contacting you via APRS. I'm running late. I'll see you later. Now, they can reply to that message. The message will go back over through that cell phone, back to the SMS GTE service, go back over APRS to a digipeater or something that transmits, and get back to your radio. So yes, you've got 2-way ham radio to cell phone capability with APRS, assuming you have a good connection to hit somebody, right? Your antenna is good. You're at a location where you can make your packets hit a digipeater, and there you go, off to the races. Very, very cool feature. In addition to that, we can do WinLink emails over APRS and a couple of administrative things, like every time I beacon out my location when I'm out hiking or I'm outdoors, I'll get a message back from WinLink saying, hey, I've got 5 emails waiting for me in my inbox. Incredibly handy little tool. It's kind of like a notification, an old school notification on your phone. Anyway, today we're talking about handhelds and the handhelds that are on the market that are available that do APRS well. Let me just cut to the chase and tell you that if you want to do APRS in today's environment, you're likely going to have to pick up a Yaesu FT5DR, potentially an FT3DR. Okay, there it is, right up front. If you want to do APRS in a slick, efficient way with a nice, robust outdoor radio, this is probably the one to get if you want an all-inclusive type of situation. I've made videos in the past talking about devices using tablets, computers, and little Bluetooth-enabled TNCs like this that will turn just about any ham radio so long as it's got an audio in-out jack and a PTT control, generally, into an APRS radio. The only downside with those solutions is they usually require a tablet or a computer to go along with it. It's both good and bad in that doing APRS on the FT5DR can feel very cramped with this small screen. In fact, that is its downside, is the user control of this is it's not so great when it comes to APRS, but it's full featured and fits in the palm of your hands without having to have a tablet. Tablets are nice, though, if you want to go down the road of using maps and seeing the beacons on a much better screen, bigger in particular. That's a nice way to go, too. And I have videos on all of this, and I will link them so you can track that down. Now, the downside with running APRS in today's environment is that generally the two best handhelds for running APRS are no longer on the market anymore. And it's the D72 I started out talking about, and of course, the D74. These are both Kenwood radios. They're both discontinued, the D74 being the last one that hit the market. This is so sought after that used prices for this are over $800. Absolutely insane prices. I do not recommend you go get one of these unless you can find a good deal. I picked this up used, and I still paid $550 for it. Is it the best APRS radio handheld all-in-one unit? Yeah, it is. That's the sad thing, is that this is the best you can get when it comes to APRS. Two reasons for that. One, the D72 actually shares this feature too. They have a USB port on the side, and it gives you full TNC access to your computer or tablet simply through the radio with one USB cable. Very, very handy. The second is this also does that over Bluetooth. So you just have this sitting up somewhere connected to your computer, and you're doing APRS. Fantastic. That's one thing that I really wish, and Yesu, if you're watching this right now, consider giving us access, TNC-like access, at least KISS, keep it simple, stupid, TNC support to your future radios. And I'll throw that out to ICOM too. Everybody, let's get on the APRS bandwagon here. I really do like it, and I really think it's valuable. All right, so for this video, we're going to take a look at just some of my in-body APRS radios. If you'd like to see talking about tablets or the MobiLink or whatever like device that you attach to a radio to do APRS, I've already done videos on that, so we'll just leave that on other videos, and we're going to focus on radios that have APRS in them. So I've grouped them somewhat chronologically in the order that they came out. I put this one here. This is the only really Chinese example of an APRS radio I would even consider, and this really only does beaconing. The advantage of this is that it'll work as a Digipeater. So if you really are just a beaconing boy and you want to do beaconing on APRS, this is probably the radio to look at. It's the Launch ONLH. It charges off of USB-C. I did a review of it. You can go look that up if you'd like. Probably the coolest beaconing-only Chinese radio that does APRS that exists. There really aren't that many Chinese radios to begin with, though, so keep that in mind. All right, I think the two best showings in APRS, full APRS radios, are the Kenwoods, the D72 and the D74. And the D74 is the older brother, stands a bit prouder, truer. You can see it's really just a bigger radio altogether. But I'm not going to deep dive the 72s. We're going to put those aside for really a little bit. I want to focus on really the two purest incarnations of APRS, the D74 and the FT5DR. And the FT5 functions just like the FT3 and the FT2. So if you get one of those radios, it's the same APRS capability. So keep that in mind. You can actually come up on a relatively inexpensive APRS radio for not too expensive if you get one of the older Yaesus. The FT1, also a good radio for APRS. Okay. Anyway, let me show you the example of why the Kenwood is such a superior APRS radio. If you bring up the Kenwood here, I have it in APRS 12 is what it says, so it's running 1200 baud APRS. That's controllable by clicking this list button. That's now the KISS TNC, you don't need that, or just off. With it on, though, it will now decode APRS packets when it gets them. If I want to, I can click list, and it'll give me a list of all the stations that it's heard and picked up. We're just talking beaconing at this point. And then we can go into different information about them, and it'll provide the details on the station, where they're at with relation to, whatever, what I picked up from them. If they're running sensors, so on and so forth. You can go down the list here and you can pick up all kinds of different stations. Yeah, so here's an example of a weather station. By the way, this radio will have the same display. It will print out in this format. It's literally a weather station. This one doesn't seem to be working very well, though. If we go, it'll give you things like temperature, rainfall, wind, if it has those sensors on board. It looks like this one's a little broken right now, so we're going to skip over this one. That's kind of the beaconing function. That's what you use it for. You use it to determine who's in your local area, and if you have a couple of friends that are all beaconing, you can stay in really close contact with each other and really know to the minute or how often they beacon, where they're at. Again, really valuable setting if you are in the field or work, hiking, off-grid from a cell phone standpoint. Often good stuff. But you obviously want to see what we're talking about regarding the messaging capability. So for messaging, if you click on the message button, you have just one message right now, but if I click F new, I can just type a message in, and it's literally that simple. I just click on message input if I want. Let me go back though. I'll select my call sign, and I can select whatever call sign I want, whomever it is I'm trying to reach. I could do also, I could go in and I could say SMS GTE. There we go. And then I can make the message text any cell phone number and a message that I want to send, and it will send it as long as that APRS message is picked up. That's really the shining reason why APRS is so useful in the case of having an HT or a mobile radio. Mobile radios, again, are even better because that 50-watt output. This messaging capability is what really sends it home as a reliable and useful tool. Now, switching things up a bit, let's take a look at the FT3. Still a good radio, all things said and done. I do have a lot of battery saving capabilities turned on this, so the screen's going to dim a lot where we're doing this. But if I go to menu and I go to S list, that's going to give me, similar to the Kenwood, it's going to give me all the stations that it hears. If I click menu on one of these, it will give us, the different info on this person, what they're doing, etc., etc. If I go back, I can use the dial here to go through the list. One of the advantages of the Kenwood is that you've got the full featured control list, or the controller, and the touchpad here for numbers. This doesn't, so you rely a lot more on the touchscreen, and good or bad, right? Obviously you get a lot smaller radio for that, which is good often for when you're hiking. And then you have different details as well. So here's a weather station, right? It's providing rain, different format, wind direction, gust, and temperature. Humidity's 52. You get the idea, right? Same concept as what we saw with the Kenwood. This is just Yaesu's approach to it. So all in all, it's a pretty straightforward type of view. Same exact thing. The issues that I have, and it's not really that big a deal, I'm more complaining than anything, is if I want to send a message. So if I go to MList, these are all the messages I've received. Remember I mentioned WinLink. If I leave WinLink in my beacon, the actual beacon of where I'm at, I'll get back a message saying something along the lines of, and here's my problem. Here's my problem with the Yaesu. One of the problems. The menu is covering this up, and you can adjust this some, but I'm trying to, let me see my message here. There we go. It says you have 5 WinLink messages pending. Okay, great. That's really handy. Now, so if I wanted to edit this, or let's say I wanted to reply to WinLink, and I hit edit text, I can go in and edit it, but I'm using this on-screen touch window, and I'm literally starting at this first position, and I'd have to go through and delete this whole thing. That's if you wanted to edit it. But what if you just wanted to reply to somebody? So, okay, let's go to let's find something else. Here we go. This one goes back a ways. Let's click on this guy. There we go. So they sent yeet yeet. So okay, cool. Let's reply to that one. Go back up and I'll hit the reply. So I'm in this weird screen where I want to reply to yeet yeet, but I wanted it to be a reply like you'd get for like an email or something along those lines. And my issue with this is I have to click edit text, and then I have to go through this process of like clearing out yeet yeet before I can come back and say YOLO, right? And then I've got to use the touchscreen. So I'm going to go like that. YOLO, okay. So now I can just hit M transmit to send my message off, and we'll see it starts transmitting, doing its thing. I'm likely not going to get out because I'm using a stock rubber duck antenna inside my shack. But that's the issue somewhat with doing APRS on any of these radios. The Yaesu has the most trouble with messaging. It's a little clunky in the editing from my point of view because you're using that screen real estate, whereas on the 74 you've got buttons here with the 10 key for all you old school SMS texters back in the day. Just a preference, I guess. I think the overall the FT5 is a fine radio. Not the best for APRS messaging, but certainly not terrible. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about while we're sitting here. APRS, a fantastic mode, but somewhat challenging to find good radios that work in this space today. Well, okay, did I sell you on APRS? You're going to run out and get yourself an APRS radio or get yourself a Baofeng cable. If you go watch my other video, I explain how to do that. To do APRS on the go or wherever you're at. I hope so. I really do, because it's one of those modes that finds itself in kind of a weird place right now. There's not a lot of radios that give you complete control over APRS, and really that is great when it's on the handheld like the Yaesu here, but it's even better if that handheld can bridge that control to some kind of TNC device that you can access via your computer. We need more of that. I don't want APRS to go away. It is my favorite thing to do when hiking, actively going somewhere. I love to just be able to throw my beacons out there to make sure that my family knows I'm okay, or whomever wants to follow me while I'm running around. I do that a lot when I go to Hamfest or do anything ham radio related. I'll often turn the beaconing on just for a bit of fun. So you can follow me. KI6NAZ-7 is what I have all of my APRS handheld set to. That means it's a portable device or mobile device that I take in the field. Give me your thoughts on APRS. What is your favorite APRS handheld? I did not talk about the Kenwood THD7, which predates the D72 and the D74, and I did not talk about the line of Yaesu radios that all predate the really nice radio, the FT5DR, because every one of the predecessors also has APRS going all the way back to the FT1D, which did APRS. There's a couple other ones too that did it as well. All right, love your comments. Post them below. Links to a couple of other videos are going to be shared with you. I hope you find them helpful and entertaining. I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. I'll talk to you later. See ya. Not today, mosquito.